Talking Cougars is brought to you by Safeway. Come see what's fresh.
This is Talking Cougars, and man, I'm excited to get this one going. I'm Michael Bumpus with my guy Alex Brink. The Cougs win the Apple Cup, man. The cup is coming back to the Palouse. Great game, Alex Brink, man. Brought back some memories. What'd you see, man? How you feeling?
Dude, chills up and down. 4th and 1 stop on the goal line. That is how legends are made. Kyle Thornton, man, the 5th-year senior, scraping over the top, tackling Will Rogers to bring the cup on home. Get on out of there, dogs. We got that cup coming back to Pullman. What did I see? I saw John Mateer's legs again, Bump. 2 touchdown rushes. One on 3rd and 20 at the end of the half that, frankly, I think was the turning point in the game. He was my offensive MVP. He threw it pretty well, too. A late interception that was tough. Left it a little short, but in the end, John Mateer made the plays. He was a difference maker. What did you see offensively? Who did you like?
Man, well, I'm a second you. I love John Mateer. I'll pick somebody else. I just love the way that he handled the pressure. They tried to confuse him. They showed we're rushing 5, then we're actually dropping 2. They're stunting the offensive linemen. They're spying him with the linebackers. I mean, he handled himself perfectly, but I'm not going to pick a quarterback. I'm going with the receiver Meredith, man. 7 receptions, 111 yards, and 1 touchdown. A real big play on that 91-yard drive for these guys trying to put points on the board. It was a scramble drill. A lot of what Mateer did was keep plays alive, and he found our guy Meredith several times down the field. You love that quarterback-receiver connection. It was on display. You remember those scramble drills, B. You run a play, then boom, blow the whistle. We're scrambling. We're finding space. Mateer and Meredith were on the same page all day, along with some other guys. I got to go with my guy Meredith. On the defensive side, I got to go with Stephen Hall. A big pass breakup in the end zone when you needed it the most. The Dogs were driving to try to win this ball game. He has his back to the tight end. He sticks his hand over the top. Textbook defense with that PBU. I was hyped, B. I'm going with Hall on defense. Who you got on defense?
Defense for me was the senior Andrew Edson, Mount Si, hometown kid from Snoqualmie. He had 7 tackles and a sack on the day. And look, just in general, he was chasing down ball carriers. He was tracking back on screens. He was making life tough on Will Rogers because, you know, at times Rogers had some moments where he sat back there and delivered. That play action pass game from the Huskies was really getting after the Cougs. And Andrew Edson was a big part of that, along with Ray M. Stevenson, who had a sack. So that D-line, I felt like at times played a big role. They had moments where they were able to make life hard for Jonah Coleman, the running back. Andrew Edson, you know he loved it. A senior from the state of Washington helps in a big way to win the Apple Cup and get that Apple Cup trophy home. I know for him, it is a huge moment. What a win for the Cougs, man.
Man, I love how you pointed out that play action. It is so hard as a linebacker, as a defensive lineman, to read your keys. You're pulling guards and tackles. You're leaking the running back out the backfield. I'm talking about UW's game plan. Big ups to their game plan. It all makes sense. It all seemed to be working at times. So when you needed to be disciplined and just do your job, the defense was able to do that and kind of fluster Rogers late in the game. Defensively, it was a great performance. Offensively, it was a gritty performance. It felt like some backyard football at times, but you just do whatever you do to win the ball game. UW has 16 penalties. You take advantage of those situations. You be disciplined. The Cougs were the more disciplined team that day that helped them get that victory.
Definitely more disciplined. And, you know, in the end, you talked about a complimentary football, right? End of the half, okay? Missed field goal by Washington State, right? Just a heartbreaker from Dean Janikowski. And then the Coug defense gets a 3-and-out, and you get the ball back. And you mentioned it, how then you get a 91-yard drive to finish that half, and you get points, right? Like, that swing was huge, and then you come out of half, get a stop, and then get a score. What a huge swing. 14 points in the middle 8. You know the coaches love that middle 8. End of the final 4 minutes of the end of the first half and the first 4 minutes at the start of the second half. Cougs won that middle 8. Look, let's take this big picture, Bump. This win is massive in the context of Washington State football, the entire history, not just Apple Cup. Because think about what this means for this team. 3-0 to start the season. You'll win against your rivals. You've been kicked out of the club, so to speak. And in the same week of this Apple Cup, it gets announced that the Pac-12 is being rebuilt. And now you have a chance. And guess what? You're in the conversation. If you keep winning, to maybe be in the playoff. There's a long way to go, but you've started the process. What a win for Washington State.
Yeah, you got to take the necessary steps, and every week you take one step forward. It was weird seeing the Apple Cup played in September. It was weird seeing it at Lumen Field. But at the end of the day, both sides showed up, B. I wasn't sure what the crowd was going to look like. You see the UW folks showed up. You see the Washington State folks showed up. I know we got the victory, but overall, it was just a great atmosphere, man. I'm so glad the game was still being played, and I'm glad that the Cougs took a step in the right direction, because you're right. If you just keep winning ball games, you never know what's going to happen. You might sneak in. You're going to need some style points or whatnot, but one step at a time, and it's always sweet bringing this Apple Cup back. Man, Dicker, 2-2 in the Apple Cup as the head coach for the Washington State Cougars. I don't know what everyone else's record is, but his win percentage at 500 got to be pretty good when you look at the history books.
Yeah, 100%. And Jake Dicker, you saw his emotion after the game, what this means to him, what these kids mean to him, what the program means to him. He's a real one, Bump. I mean, he has done incredible things for this university. Let's talk about him when we come back on the other side of this break. This segment is presented by Cougs First. Think Cougs First for products, services, and hiring.
Got more questions about Cougs showing up, not showing up. Do they care about this game? I look at that game. I want to give the Cougs everything I have, because I wouldn't be here with this amazing opportunity without this amazing university. I mean that. And I'm proud to represent Washington State.
Good to hear from Coach Dicker there, Bump. You can hear the emotion in his voice, right? He talked about after the game, we don't hate them so much. It's more that we love each other. And again, that the way he's built this program and the culture he brings is so much of a focus about the team, right? Team first, player led. And I really felt that, honestly, in the game. I felt that after the game. And Coach Dicker, man, he does an incredible job of getting his teams ready to play in big moments, right? We talked about last segment how big this game was, but think about the last season, right? Wisconsin at home, ranked team, got the team up for that with the win. Oregon State right after that, ranked team at home, got them ready for that. How about Wisconsin a couple years ago on the road and won that game? And then lastly, how about the Apple Cup, his first Apple Cup, right, in his first season as the interim head coach, winning that game on the road. He's won 2 Apple Cups in Seattle. Unbelievable. So Jake Dicker, this might be the biggest win he's had as the Cougar head coach, but he does a nice job of getting his teams ready to play, and he clearly has a lot of emotion invested in this program.
Yeah, I love listening to him speak after the game, because it's real. It's authentic. A lot of coaches get behind or in front of the camera, behind the mic, and they say a whole bunch of cliches and stuff, but that's not the deal with Dicker. You felt his emotion, you saw his emotion, and he does a great job with messaging. Every program has their messages for the week or their messages for the year, and every year he comes up with stuff that these guys buy into, and you can tell they're bought into it. When you listen to the players talk about the program and their coach, they echo what he says, and they do it just as authentic as he does it. So it's all about connection. We know what it's like being in the Palouse, playing for an underdog. You got to get guys to buy into your message and do it in a way that carries out onto the football field. And that's exactly what he's done, man. I'm so happy for Dickert and happy for the guys on that football team. They deserve that win, but they know it's not over. And to continue to go down the right path, they have to stick together and stay bought into the process and just the way that the Cougs do things, man.
Well, and as an athlete, right, that motivation plays a bigger role than sometimes you want to give it credit for. Because obviously there's a physical preparation, there's a mental preparation when it comes to studying film and all the things that go into it. But there is that kind of third emotional, spiritual piece that I think really matters, right? I felt like personally, I played my best when I had that motivation that came sometimes from the outside. And then I was able to take all my preparation physically and mentally from studying and add that into the mix. And that's a really powerful combination. And you saw, even last week, the pregame speech and the postgame reaction in the locker room to that Texas Tech game, the way Jake Dickert, again, kind of motivated, right? And gave the speech, and then the excitement at the end. And you feel it week in and week out. And I really do think that's an important piece of the puzzle for this team.
Yeah, it is. When you can feel it as a guy in your late 30s, you can imagine what it's like being 18 to 24 and listening to it and being able to go out and actually play for that person and play some ball for them. But let's talk about one of these guys who are playing at a high level. It's a different kind of game, B. Last year we saw Cam Ward for the Cougs be a mobile type of quarterback, a guy who preferred to throw the football, but he can run. This year we have a quarterback who can legit run the rock. Last week, he set the record for the most rushing yards for a quarterback wearing the crimson and gray. And this week, he has a touchdown, two running touchdowns over 25 yards, man. Mateer brings a dynamic to this offense that a defense just can't account for. UW tried to spy him. They tried to blitz him. They manned up on the outside, and it was like everything they threw at him, because of his athleticism, he was able to buy time and throw the ball down the field, or he was able just to gash you. You run a quarterback trap on 3rd and 20. You're just trying to get into field goal range, and you end up scoring a touchdown, man. Mateer's been special.
He really has. And obviously his legs, right? Like to be able to not just get first downs, but extend to touchdowns. His strength. How about that first touchdown run? He stiff-armed the defensive lineman to get through that first level, and then he was gone for the touchdown, right? But you mentioned it, and I don't want it to go overlooked. His ability to manipulate the pocket, scramble and get outside and keep his eyes downfield and find receivers, right? That connection with Josh Meredith, the connection with some of those other guys, that's an important piece. He's not looking to run first. He's looking to throw first. Now, they have some design runs for him, but when he's scrambling, he's trying to throw, and that puts a ton of pressure on a defense. Again, you don't really know how to defend it at all. You play man, he beats you with his legs. You play zone, he scrambles around in the pocket and he finds an open guy. It doesn't really matter. If you blitz him and you miss, he's gone. So what they've put on tape for the last 3 weeks is really scary. And there's a very real conversation for John Mateer, if he keeps playing at a high level, that the nation is going to be put on notice and people are going to start talking about him, especially if the Cougs keep winning.
Yeah, man. One last thing I want to point out. Mateer did a great job. Those running backs, Slim Baker and Parker, picking up in pass pro, picking up the blitz. I mean, goodness gracious. You can tell these guys love him, because you don't stand in front of a linebacker getting downhill the way that they were doing if you don't love your quarterback and feel the potential for a big play every single time, man. So big ups to those running backs too, man. The pass pro, they were vital.
Yeah, they were huge. It was all around incredible team effort. When we come back, we're going to take a look at that 4th and 1 stop in our play breakdown of the week. This segment is brought to you by Cougar Collective.
We are back, and this is Talkin' Cougars. It's time to break down a play like we do every single week. This one is the biggest play of the game. For the second year in a row, it came down to 4th and 1 for the Apple Cup. This time, you're down on the goal line. I'm going to send it to my quarterback, man. What you see, break it down for us.
Boy, it was quite the chess match between defensive coordinator Jeff Schmedding and Coach Jed Fish, the head coach, and Brendan Carroll, the offensive coordinator of the Washington Huskies. Right, you come out on 4th and 1, Cougs show blitz, okay, off the edge, Sam and Will off the edge. Right away, Coach Fish calls a timeout. Now, as a coach, and you know this, Bump, offensive coordinator, you're thinking, okay, I just saw what they were going to do. And now the question is, are they still going to do it, or are they going to change it up? And you just don't know. That's kind of the guessing game. That's the back and forth. And so Coach Fish and Coach Carroll come out and they call a short side speed option with Will Rogers. Not a fantastic play call by any means, but it's a pretty good play call if the Cougs are running an all-out blitz, right? Because you can lead the end man on the line of scrimmage, you option off of him, you give yourself a chance to get in the end zone. You only got to get 1 yard. It's not a bad play call. On the flip side, Coach Jeff Schmedding did a fantastic job of making a switch. He called what looked like the same call, blitz, and then right at the snap, those outside linebackers just soften up a little bit. So now there's nobody to block. There's nobody to option off of. And everything gets strung out. Will Rogers, right, isn't able to get there, and the rest is history, as they say. What did you see, the way the players played it and the way the reaction happened?
Yeah, essentially the same thing. You're running a speed option. And when you run a speed option, the word option means that you are optioning off a player. You're leaving a player unblocked so your quarterback can make the final decision on whether to keep it or to toss it to your running back. Where the offensive line for UW messed up was they blocked everyone who was down on the line of scrimmage. And I think it was because they were confused with that alignment. You got your edge rusher, your safety walked up. You got your tight end to the right and your right tackle. You should leave that last man on the line of scrimmage, and then you work your way up to the Mike, who is Thornton, who ends up making the play. So then if you block it correctly, you run to your right, you read the edge. If he crashes down on the quarterback, you option to the running back. If he gets upfield to the running back, the quarterback gets downhill and the Mike is blocked. They messed it all up. There was nobody to option. You had your tight end on your edge, you had your tackle on your safety, and you had Thornton running free, sniffing things out, and just blew it up in the backfield. That's why you practice these situations. That's why it's so important that you get it right at practice. You emphasize the severity of the situation and you just get after it. It seems like the Cougs were more prepared in that situation and UW was a bit rattled. I remember watching the play and seeing the tight end kind of look to his left trying to communicate with the tackle. I knew something was up. And Alex, as soon as they took that step to the right, you saw it. I go, there's no chance. I'm already celebrating before Thornton even gets to him. I'm like, game over. Let's get out of here. It's all about execution in clutch time.
It really is. And I wonder, Bump, that was down in that end zone and in the corner where all the Coug fans were, right? You kind of saw all that crimson. I wonder if the communication was thrown off for that Husky offensive line and, like you said, the tight end, because the crowd was loud, man. I was there in person. It was really loud. And again, you mentioned it, Kyle Thornton, the middle linebacker, his ability to trigger as soon as he saw that first step was so impressive. I thought it was a very instinctive play for a veteran linebacker, and he showed up in the biggest moment that you could.
Yeah, I have so many questions. Like, obviously, I'm rooting for WSU, but the coach in me is saying, why not have a third option? And when I saw that play was ran to the boundary, I got excited. When I saw that there was no tight end leaking to the back of the end zone, I got excited. It was such a one-dimensional type of play to the short side of the field. All we had to do was just blow stuff up and make things difficult in the backfield, and that's exactly what happened, man. The second year in a row it's come down to a 4th and 1 play. Last year we had our hearts ripped out with Roman Dunze giving the jet sweep and Michael Penix having a couple options. They make the right decision there. This year it worked out for us, man. I'm excited about that game. The Apple Cup's coming home, like I mentioned. Dicker's 2-2, and I love the post-game celebrations. Guys in the locker room. I didn't know you could smoke cigars in the locker room now. I guess times are different, but smoking cigars in the locker room, celebrating. But again, executing when you absolutely need to. Mistakes are going to be made in a football game on every single play. It's all about the team who makes the least mistakes. That was us this weekend.
Yeah, well, when we come back, we're going to talk to the key guy in that play. Kyle Thornton joins Talkin Cougars next. This segment is brought to you by Flat Stick Pub, local craft beer, mini golf, and old school fun. Welcome back to Talkin Cougars, and we got a special guest with us, the one and only Kyle Thornton, who Bump and I actually just spent a few minutes breaking down that big play at the end of the game. Kyle, can you, man, just from your standpoint, walk us through that 4th and 1 at the end of the game to win the Apple Cup?
Yeah, so, going into the week, we knew that they were going to try to feed one all week. We also talked about how we knew it was going to come down to a fourth quarter game, and we knew it was going to be down to the wire. And so, yeah, going in all week, we knew that it was going to be him on the goal line. We didn't know exactly how they were going to get to it. We were more thinking of going to be more inside, more up the gut. And so we were ready for that. Kind of all week I'd spent watching him, being ready, making sure I was ready for that moment. And then, yeah, come game day, it actually happened. And as soon as he bolted to the sideline, I knew something was up. And, Andrew Edson, the defensive end, does an amazing job of extending the play. Ansel, the D tackle, also blows it up. And it just gave me a clear shot right to him. And the rest the rest is history, I guess they said.
Yeah, the rest is history, my man. That's a legendary moment in Cougar football history. Obviously, the Apple Cup for sure. And boy, I tell you what, those instincts kicked in. You could tell as soon as you saw that step to the right by the back and the quarterback, you shot through that gap, man. That was super impressive. Testament to, like you said, your preparation. That's really cool. Kind of on those same lines, right? The preparation, the conversations. It felt like, as a team, you guys were really prepared for this moment. Not just the 4th and 1, but the entire aspect of what this game meant, right? Like, there's a lot that went into it, but I mean, the game went back and forth, right? I mean, lead changes, ups and downs, but it felt like on the sideline, you guys had, a really good vibe with what you were trying to accomplish.
Yeah, and honestly, what I credit that to is just an amazing week of preparation, and Digger really hammered it home. This wasn't just a week of preparation either. We've been preparing for this moment in this game for 9 months. This really started back in January, and obviously you can't just single out one game on the calendar. But 9 months ago, when we showed up here in January, working in the dark, going through winter workouts in the rain, in the cold, we knew that it was for these moments under the lights. Once our time came, we'd be ready for it.
Yeah, 100%. And you've been in this program a long time, man. You've obviously paid your dues. You've been super productive. You're a leader on this team. I know it's a 1-0 mentality every week, but what did this win, this Apple Cup, mean to you personally?
What is it? Oh man, it means everything. I think it fulfills my story. I think it's probably the best way to put it. As you kind of mentioned, I've been here for a really long time. And, the 2019 Kyle Thornton that showed up here, fresh-eyed and bushy-tailed, like, he didn't really get what the Apple Cup was about. And, I think that's something that really happens throughout your journey here as a Coug is you start to learn what this game really means to the people of Washington and, more importantly, to the people of Washington State. And I think that's something that I've just has slowly built up in me. And for it to be my 6th and final year here, I was well aware of what this game meant. And for it to finally happen the way it did is a storybook ending.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that, man. That's a storybook as it gets. So that's incredibly special, and to all us alum and all the Coug fans out there, that's a special moment on our end too. Well, as you look at that one, we got to kind of put it to bed, unfortunately, because unlike previous seasons when it's the last game of the season, right? It's smack dab in the middle, if not at the beginning. And now you got a lot of football left to play. You're getting ready to play San Jose State here this Friday night. It's a big game, obviously, because you got to keep it rolling. As you come off of a big win, how do you refocus and get ready for the Spartans?
Really what it comes down to is process. Since the beginning of the season, we've been really hammering home. Once we hit that Sunday to Monday transition, it's a brand new week regardless. And so we've already had 3 opportunities to, reset and refocus, coming off of the Portland State week where we scored 70, a lot of good vibes, but we knew, hey, that's last week. We got a new opponent this week and we can't care about last week. And so that's just been kind of our motto here week after week about refocusing and relocking in. And on top of that, I think we've learned our lesson a little bit from last season. Not to delve into it too much, but obviously last year we started hot and then kind of lost it. And so I think as a point of emphasis this year is to make sure we don't make that same mistake again.
Yeah, 100%. And Bump and I talked about that. Being able to learn from past lessons, that's vital. And I know Coach Dicker and the staff and you guys as leaders do a fantastic job of that. Well, listen, man, I appreciate you joining us. Thanks for coming on, being an incredible ambassador of Washington State football. We sure appreciate it and wish you the best of luck the rest of the way.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, we'll be back on Talkin Cougars after this. This segment is brought to you by Valley GMC. See you in the Valley.
This is Talkin Cougars. It's time to look forward, man. The Apple Cup is done. We loved it. We enjoyed it. But now it's time to focus on the task at hand. You got San Jose State making their way to the Palouse. They are 3-0 so far this year. They've beaten Sac State 42-24, Air Force 17-7, and Kennesaw State 31-10. This ain't a team you can sleep on. I get the emotions of the Apple Cup. You beat a Big Ten team. You're flying high. But Alex, we already know you don't sleep on anybody when it comes to playing football. What have you seen out of San Jose State this year?
Yeah, not to mention they're playing good football. You got a Friday night game, short week. That's always hard. Plus, you have a big game after this at Boise. So there's a million reasons, right, why you could kind of sleepwalk through this game. Hopefully, Coach Dicker and the staff, I mean, not hopefully, I know that they're having these conversations and getting this team ready to play. And San Jose State's a dangerous team, right? They had coaching change in the offseason. Ken Niumatalolo, the old Navy head coach, came to San Jose, but he's not running the option anymore, Bump. He hired Craig Stutzman, and Coug fans will recognize that name. Former Washington State offensive coordinator under Nick Rolovich, runs the run and shoot, likes to throw that thing all over the yard. And there's another name that Coug fans will recognize possibly. Quarterback Emmett Brown was a walk-on at Washington State last year. He left to go find a better opportunity, and he's the starter for San Jose State. And I'll tell you what, Bump, I knew Emmett Brown when he was coming out of high school, saw him at an Elite 11 regional. He could really throw the football, and he has been lights out to start this year. He's 10th in the country in pass yards per game. He's thrown 9 touchdowns on the year versus 2 interceptions. He can really do it, and Coach Stutzman knows how to call a game. So this is going to be a challenge for the WSU defense, and there's some receivers I know you've watched on this San Jose State team that could really go.
Oh, yeah, man. My man Nick Nash can play. He had 225 yards last game on 17 receptions. Had a big play called back in the end zone as well. Could have had more than that. The guy's big. He's 6'3". He has good enough speed, a good route runner. You mentioned the run and shoot and how they're going to spread the ball out. I think they do a great job of making a defense expand, getting the 3x1s, the 2x2s. You're going empty as well. And then they reserve the right to run the football. They want to run the football. Haven't been great at it. They're last in the Mountain West right now, averaging about 58 yards per game on the ground, 65 yards their last game. But they do it enough to make you respect it. And Emmett Brown does a great job of reading that second level. They're going to play action, RPO it, and try to get into their slots and take shots on the outside. But it starts with Nick Nash, man. He's a guy who I could see having a good year at San Jose State and then making a move somewhere else. Thankfully, he's a senior. This is going to be his last year, but he's that type of talent, man. And when you have a quarterback who understands the system and wide receivers who understand how to get in space, they're always going to be a threat. They're like a basketball team in March Madness. Those first 2 rounds, when you play teams that's got shooters everywhere and they can get hot and you never know who's going to go down. That's the way I look at this San Jose State team.
For sure. And here's the other thing. Look, Will Rogers from Washington last week did not have any problem throwing the football. And it was different. It was a different scheme, under center, play action pass, but 314 yards passing, some big shots downfield. You know that the Spartans are going to be looking at that tape, finding ways that they can attack that back end of the Washington State secondary. And frankly, the Coug defense has got to be stronger in the back end. They made some plays at times, but they also made some mistakes with their eyes. And they're susceptible to getting beat over the top if they're looking in the backfield. And so, Washington State, as they watch their film from the last 3 weeks, they got to really dive into where they can improve in the secondary, because this is the best passing attack they're going to face up to this point. It's better than Texas Tech. I really believe that. And so you got to be ready to go.
So I mentioned number 3, Nick Nash. Can't forget Justin Lockhart as well. My man had 106 yards, 4 receptions, and 1 touchdown. Again, another weapon for Emmett Brown to throw to. Then I flip over to the other side and I look at their defense, B. And it's a multiple type of defense. They ran their traditional 4-3 in long down and distances. They'll go into that odd front. They'll bring in a dime and a nickel. They're a team that is well equipped to play against the pass. So now my question is, how are they going to combat what Mateer is doing? What are they going to take from that UW game and bring it to Mateer and try to confuse him? Because I think that's what you should do with a young quarterback, is try to overwhelm him. But thankfully, Mateer has put together some games where he's shown he can throw the ball, he can run the ball, and he can do a little bit of both. I look at the San Jose State defensive line, and I see potential for stunts. I see potential for them being aggressive with the blitz. They have nothing to lose in this situation, and they have enough talent to at least be in the game. And with a team like San Jose State, if you let them stay in the game, then they start to believe. Then there's life. Then they start making plays. Then Nick Nash is making more plays. So what I want to see is this disciplined football and bring that intensity that you brought to the Apple Cup to San Jose State.
Yeah, the defense, the defensive coordinator, Derek Odom for San Jose, has been there for a while. right? His defense last year was number 2 in the Mountain West in yards per game. They were a top 20 pass defense in the country last year, just over 180 yards passing per game. He knows how to coach. He really does. Linebacker Jordan Pollard, 12 tackles last week and an interception. The linebacking core for the Spartans is a good group. And that's kind of the group you key on against Washington State when you talk about John Mateer's running ability and the running backs, Wayshawn Parker, Leo Puolasi, and Javinsky Schlembaker. It's really the second level defenders that have to make the tackles at or near the line of scrimmage. And I think that group's pretty good for San Jose State. But you're right. How do you defend Mateer? Because the one thing I will say, that Husky secondary was long, they're talented, they were a little inexperienced, but it was one of the better groups Washington State will see all year, which is why I felt like the Cougar receivers had a little bit of a hard time separating at times in man coverage. That's not going to be the case this week. Chris Hudson, Kyle Williams, Trey Shackelford, Josh Meredith, they'll be able to get open versus the Spartans. The question is, will Mateer have time to throw it? And will the Spartans choose to heat him up, or will they try and play coverage?
I'm with you. You mentioned second level. Jordan Pollard, 37 tackles this year. A little undersized, about 6'1", 193 pounds. Get a body on him. We got lots more to do when we return. This is Talkin' Cougars.
Back now with Talkin' Cougars and Bump. We had some big news last week when it comes to West Coast college football. The Pac-12 is back, baby. 4 teams added to the Pac-12 to make it a total of 6. You've got San Diego State, you've got Boise State, you've got Colorado State, and Fresno State. Really the cream of the crop of the Mountain West. Some really good football programs, some really good basketball programs, which we can also talk about. But in the end, this is the start of the rebuilding of the Pac-12. It appears that Pac-12 leadership, Teresa Gold and the rest of the leadership with Washington State and Oregon State in particular, have chosen not to wait around for a Big 12 invite or an ACC invite or some version of that. They're going to go their own way, and I like it, man. You put the ball in somebody else's court, you have some control, and now you can go out and find some other programs to come and join the party and then really see how much this new league will be worth on the open market.
Yeah, I love it, man. I was on a flight this weekend back from California. I sit down to have myself an Old Crimson, and I look at the television, and it's San Diego State versus Cal. I go, all right, San Diego State, let's see what you do. Cal ended up winning the game, but it was just crazy sitting there and just imagining what this conference can look like. I love that Fresno State is in the mix. I remember a couple years ago when Jake Hayner and the gang go down to the Rose Bowl and they beat UCLA. I mean, Fresno State has been a thorn in the Pac-12's you-know-what for years now. They always put together a good team. DeBoer and Grubb both came from Fresno State. DeBoer now with Alabama, Grubb with the Seattle Seahawks. They always put out some good players over there. Then you talk about Boise State. Boise State, I feel like, has always needed to be a part of the pack. With their rise in the early 2000s and late 1990s to where they are now, it's been fun to watch that journey, and they're a competitive ball team. And San Diego State just seems right. You're in California. You put out some ballers as well. Rashad Penny, a guy who played for the Seahawks a couple years ago, has been put into the NFL. And everyone involved, man, this was one of the most encouraging news that I've gotten in a long time, because you're sitting there and you're waiting to see what's going to be done. You hear the rumors about the Big 12, and I go, yeah, okay, that makes sense as well. But here's the difference. We were proactive in this whole thing. We're not sitting back, waiting for things to happen, seeing how the cookie crumbles. You went out there and you went and grabbed some teams. Now, you're going to have to pay for these guys to come over there or come over to the Pac-12, and so be it, because it's about building this league back up and keeping talent out west. If you do not have a Power 5 conference in the West, everyone's going to the Midwest, everyone's going down south. For the last couple of years, we've already lost top recruits to the Midwest and to down south. I think this is encouraging. I look at my son who just started high school, and I go, man, you're going to experience a whole new era of the Pac-12, and I'm excited for him.
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree. And look, yeah, you're going to pay for them, but in the end, if you went to the Big 12, you were going to take a discount anyway. You had no leverage with the Big 12. So in the end, you were going to pay regardless. So now, to your point, you control your own destiny, and I really love that. And the AD for Oregon State, Scott Barnes, had some great comments on it this week. Let's hear from him.
This was our best and highest opportunity. The brands that we've included in this process, their success from academics to on the field, all rose above and gave us the chance to build something real special. There are no limitations. We'll go after the best.
What I love about that audio from Scott Barnes is that he's not backing down from anybody, Bump. I mean, I really believe that that's an important piece of this when you think about Washington State and Oregon State, but now this new Pac-12, you mentioned it prior to this, you got to step up and be a power level conference. And it's not really about, Power 5 and Group of 5 now. It's really all about playoff spots, right? Which means you need to put yourself out there in a way that you're constantly competing to be in the top 12, or you're that 5th highest rated conference champion. That's the real key. And this, I believe, gives you that chance because you mentioned some of those programs. Fresno State has been a great football program and perennially ranked in the top 25. Boise is a top 15 team year in and year out and has been fantastic. San Diego State has a chance, you made that point about them being in California, they have a chance to really make a move here because as you see this year, UCLA is really struggling. You obviously have USC, but who else is it, right, in that Southern California region? So San Diego State can really make a move, and then you have the flag bearers, Washington State and Oregon State. And really what you do is you find a way to go down south and get some schools in the south from the AAC. Maybe you get Cal and Stanford back, but maybe not. I don't think you need it. It'd be great. But you can get some good programs out of the AAC and almost create a 8, 10, 12 team north-south division with a ton of spread geographically, some great football. And you know what it is, Bump? It's a really good regional product, and that's what people pay for when they watch college football. I think some media buyers, whether it's streaming or linear or a combination of both, is going to come in and they're going to pay for this product. These schools are going to be just fine. They're going to compete for the college football playoff year in and year out. And in the end, in football, that is all that matters.
I'm with you 100%, man. And I'm excited to see who is going to step up when it comes to these networks because there is a need for this. And it was so hard to watch Pac-12 football for a while, right? Media deals and the exposure and whatnot. I think we've learned our lesson. The leaders have learned their lessons from the past. Hopefully they have. That's what history is for, right? You learn it so you don't repeat it. So get the media deals done and just become more attractive. So you need teams like Oregon State to have a decent year, Washington State to have a decent year, Boise State, the recognizable teams. Because I think we learned something over the past year or so, that Washington State's viewership is a lot better than what people think. People thought of Washington State as a team, oh, it's so small, it's in the Palouse. Their viewership has to be down when it comes to the Pac-12. We were actually like 3rd or 4th when it comes to people watching our games. You throw our games on ESPN, people will watch. If you know every single year that Washington State and Boise State are going to square off, people are going to watch that because of the loyalty that our fan base has. So this is it's looking good for us, man. It's looking good for us and everyone involved. And I'm excited for this opportunity, and I hope these guys get it done fairly quickly. Need 2 more teams, though. You got to get to at least 8. Get 2 more teams, and we'll be good to go. When we come back, man, we'll give you our final thoughts, put a wrap on this thing. I'm Michael Bump, Alex Brink, Talkin Cougars.
We're back with Talkin Cougars for some final thoughts in episode 4. And Bump, we're not in the locker room, so I do get to look ahead a little bit. This has been a fantastic 3-game stretch for the Cougs. 3-0 with a Friday night game against San Jose State to potentially go 4-0 and a big matchup on the horizon after that at Boise State to maybe, just maybe, start the season 5-0 and have a real conversation going nationally about who you are. And I really think this team can do it. They've shown some special things over the first 3 weeks. They're battle tested. This game in the short week, we're going to find out a lot because Friday nights are always tough. But again, the Cougs match up really well and should be able to handle the Spartans. And then you're looking ahead to kind of the what if when you go play at Boise. And it's a big one. I think, again, last year, Washington State starts 4-0, won some big games. Wisconsin at home, Oregon State at home. But then the wheels fell off, right, after the bye week. And it really felt like they couldn't recover. I think the team and Jake Dicker and this coaching staff are going to remember that. and they're going to be able to stay focused in moments like this, right? As you head into this game against San Jose State and moving forward, there's some big things on the horizon, and this start of this season is everything Washington State could have wanted.
Yeah, 3-0, win the week. I'm sure Jay Dickert and the coaching staff are getting these guys to focus on this week. But like you said, you and I, we're not strapping on the pad, so we can look forward a little bit. And I remember our very first episode, B, we're out here making predictions. We're out here saying if this happens and who knows. We're almost through the first third of the season because they do have 2 byes this year. So far, they're 3-0. If they are to go 4-0, possibly go 5-0, they might be ranked because Boise State is a good football team. They're already receiving some votes when it comes to being ranked in the top 25. But again, they have to take care of business. Last week, I think people thought the Cougs could win the Apple Cup, but there were more people picking UW to win that thing. They shocked a lot of folks. Now this week it's about taking care of business and doing exactly what you are supposed to do, which is beat a team in San Jose State. If you're able to do that, you're setting yourself up for the next week for a battle, for another battle. That's why I love that. Well, in the moment I didn't love it, but I love that the Apple Cup came down to the very last play, because you and I know that it's all about stress. That's all a football game is. It's a whole bunch of stress. Who can handle the stress and still perform at a high level? They've shown that they can do that in a neutral site in Seattle, but I guess we're calling it a neutral site, and we're able to execute. Now can you be the favored team and execute against San Jose State? They're setting themselves up, man. The offenses look great at times. The defense has made plays. Now we need a complete game. And we didn't even mention special teams in the Apple Cup. There were a couple big returns that really shifted field position as well. So they're moving in the right direction. But it's all about this week. And then we're looking forward to Boise State as well.
Well, and you talked about just kind of the Apple Cup and when it's played and how it's different. I actually think it's a benefit for Washington State, right? You win that game in week 3 in the way you won it. Talk about a springboard to the rest of the season, right? We're so used to Apple Cup being end of the year, and you get a big win and it feels good, and then you're moving on, right? But now you play that rivalry game early in the year, it can really change the fortunes of the team, right? First of all, where does Washington go from here? Boy, what a tough way. I mean, that's going to be a tough battle for that coaching staff to get that group bought back in. But then for Washington State, you're telling me that whole group isn't completely gelled together, playing as one, bought into the messaging and what the coaching staff wants? I really do think it's a catalyst for something big. And you're going to find out right from the jump on Friday night, right? That first quarter, how does the team come out playing at home after a big win? We'll know right away. Are they sleepwalking into it, or are they riding the high and taking it in and really getting after it and then thinking about bigger and better things?
Man, they should be extremely confident at this point, but using that confidence with the right energy. Not a confidence that we've accomplished so much and we got things figured out. You never have things figured out in this game. Not 100%. You can play a good game. You can play a good couple of games. But like you pointed out, last year you start off 4-0. You rank 13th in the country, I think as high as 11 maybe, and then you lose 6 games in a row. So let's take care of business, man. Let's take care of business, man. I think Talkin Cougars, man, episode 4, man. We're almost all the way in this thing, man. A third of the way through the season. I'm Michael Bumpus. You can find me at Michael Bumpus5 on Instagram, on X. I'll be calling the game this weekend on CW, on the CW network with JB Long. So turn on the game. Visually, you'll hear my voice. And on Sundays, I'm with the Seahawks pre-halftime and post-game show where my guy B is going to be calling on the other side as well.
I'm Alex Brink. You can find me on Twitter at AlexBrink10. You can also hear me on the radio broadcast for the Washington State Cougars with my guy Chris King, sideline analyst Jessamine McIntyre. We're going to be breaking it down on Saturday. If you can't watch the game, or Friday, if you can't watch the game on CW and listen to Bump, you can listen to us. Looking forward to seeing it and a big win on Friday night for your Washington State Cougars.